Hello and welcome everyone to the Transcelerate Digital Data Flow webinar, where we'll give you some details of our 30-day virtual hackathon. My name is Stacy Teagan. I'm a Senior Program Manager here at Transcelerate. Today you'll be hearing from 3 experts working on our digital data flow project. First, we'll have Bill Illis from Novartis, who is our workstream lead. Stacey Murray from UCB, our product sub-team co-lead, and Todd Georgis from Roche, who is our stakeholder engagement lead. A couple logistics for today's call. First, all participants are muted. For audio, you should be able to listen via your computer or your phone. We have some controls on the side in GoToWebinar, which will help you through this. If you have any questions at any point during the webinar, and certainly during our Q&A portion, we do want to hear from you. There is a questions panel on your GoToWebinar pane on the right side. When you expand the questions, you can enter your question there. Just want to ensure everyone is aware, we plan to record today's webinar in whole or in part. If you do not consent to being recorded, please send us a note through the questions panel. We'll also be using some live polling to make this more interactive for our attendees. The live polling will be done through GoToWebinar, and Shannon will be facilitating that. Shannon, can you run us through a test poll?
Yes. So this is just going to be a fun test poll so we can all test out the polling capability. I'm going to launch our test poll. So you should be seeing on your screen, what is your favorite color? You can select, again, as Stacy said, this is purely voluntary. All of the responses are then calculated up as a summary level. Your choices, blue, red, orange, and pink. Okay, I'm going to give everyone just a couple more seconds to submit their responses. I'm going to close the poll and share out the responses. So as you can see, 57% of the participants said blue is their favorite color, 17% red, 10% orange, and 16% pink. 16% pink.
Great, thank you, Shannon. Before we get into the meat of our content, we would like to go over a few ground rules. So we wanted to share that here at Transcelerate, all of our participation is voluntary in using the tools, checking the tools. Responsibility for compliance when using the tools is up to the solution adopter. On today's call, you do not have to identify what company you work for. There are some things we would ask that you not discuss and that we cannot discuss. What vendor site CROs you're using or not using, issues you may have had with vendor site CROs, any long-term development plans, anything related to cost, things you might expect. Some questions we cannot answer are specific around vendors used by our Transcelerate member companies, cost of implementing Transcelerate assets or tools, and which member companies are using which Transcelerate assets or tools. We do hope we get lots of questions about the DDF project and the upcoming hackathon. So our agenda for today, we'll start with Bill, who will give us some background information on digital data flow work streams, what the project has done to date, where we are hoping to go. Stacey Murray will then take us into more detail around the hackathon itself, including technical materials. Then we'll have Lucas from Be My App join to give us more logistics. And finally, Todd will take us through success criteria and communication plans. We'll wrap up with Q&A, where we hope to answer all of your questions. Many of you are probably very familiar with Transcelerate, some of you maybe not. I'll keep this brief, but just give a quick overview. Here at Transcelerate, we are a not-for-profit entity that fosters collaboration. We have come together to hopefully improve the health of people around the world by accelerating and simplifying research and development for new therapies. We were founded in 2012 with 10 member companies, and today, as of a recent announcement, we are now 21 member companies across the biopharmaceutical space, and we have over 25 initiatives across clinical, pharmacovigilance, and into data sharing and in preclinical. Our member companies are listed here. You can see that all of these member companies contribute to our asset solutions and thought capital. As I promised to keep it brief, I will now hand it over to Bill Illis, our DDF workstream lead, to give us an overview of Digital Data Flow Initiative. Bill?
Thank you, Stacy. I'm excited to be here with you today to talk about our project and as a follow-up from our prior webinar as we get closer to the virtual hackathon event that you're all invited to participate in. We're encouraged by the high interest from many places over the past couple months in creating a dialogue around digitized protocols and interoperability for clinical studies, and hope to see you continuing that engagement by participating in the hackathon. Before I get into the core of the content of our webinar today, which covers the scope and approach of our hackathon event coming up next month, I want to spend a few minutes, a bit of a warm-up on the vision of the Transcelerate Digital Data Flow Initiative and some of the work to date. For those of you who attended or watched the recorded version of our webinar held in November of 2019, this will be a reminder and a refresh of what exists. For newcomers, this will serve as an introduction to the materials that are available now. Our overall vision around automation and data in clinical trials is really about laying a digital foundation and catalyzing a new operating model for the way clinical studies are planned, executed, and reported. This goes beyond the defined scope of the Digital Data Flow Initiative, which is currently focused on study startup activities, and extends to other Transcelerate initiatives in the area of information sharing and harmonization. In order to achieve the vision of a true end-to-end digital data flow, we need to enable changes like eliminating text-based protocols, implementing methods to auto-configure key clinical systems from a digital protocol, capture, store, and structure data to enable the use of advanced analytics to improve study designs, link data and processes together with traceable and automated flows, and do this on an open, flexible platform which can evolve with processes, technology, and data. This, of course, is an extensive, ambitious, and transformational vision. Some of these elements have been achieved as demonstrations or in partial or fragmented ways by individual companies or software vendors. We're starting off with a defined scope in digital data flow with the intention to create a strong and sustainable basis for moving forward on this journey. What you see on this slide is the Digital Data Flow Initiative scope, which is focused on study startup asset readiness. And as depicted, it involves transforming from a largely manual and sequential process where information moves sequentially from one deliverable to the next, from one function to the next, into a setup where information moves in parallel via automated data flows to study deliverables like scheduled activities, EDC configuration, clinical database setup, statistical analysis plan authoring, and in this way, and in this version, the study design components that are part of the clinical study report. The workflow incorporates one version of the truth coming from the study protocol without human interpretations and manual reentry later. In addition, the ability to assess the impact of changes due to protocol amendments and automatically propagate those changes to the downstream systems and documents. Next slide. Expanding on the scope, it's clear that we currently operate with many systems to execute the processes of study design and startup. These are often characterized by manual entry of the same or similar information. During the process of study design, draft design information typically needs to be manually moved to a different system with a different user interface to complete steps like assessing eligibility criteria, estimating costs, or searching for historical control data. To address this, we are working to design an extensible and open digital protocol data platform to enable data interoperability, connecting systems and services supporting study design, protocol authoring, and startup readiness. Our expected result is a comprehensive environment supporting the creation of digital protocols across the industry. Over time, leveraging more and more digital data connections to improve study designs and quality, better handle changes such as protocol amendments, reduce manual efforts and cycle times by managing and reusing digitized study design data in this landscape. Moving on and shifting gears a bit now. Next slide, please. I want to spend a bit of time to orient you to the deliverables that the Digital Data Flow team released last year. The main deliverable is a document called the Solution Framework and Conceptual Design. You see an extract from the table of contents on the screen now. This package articulates the overall vision for the solution and is intended to help future providers to start to create an innovative solution leading to true industry-wide interoperability. As shown here, the document covers a set of design principles that we have adopted, including an interview style, interrogative user interface, which is highlighted, as well as user narratives, associated process flows, and a listing of expected key solution features. In addition, it contains a conceptual architecture and data model. The full version also contains information about interfaces, dependencies to other Trancelerate and industry initiatives, and a set of appendices with further details. Here is a closer view of the conceptual system architecture, and only to point out that the document itself contains more detailed descriptions of each of the architectural components. Here, as an example, is the description of the study design repository as a versioned repository of study designs using a data model as its native storage and exchange format. Next slide, please. Finally, an important part of the solutions framework and conceptual design is a set of design principles that we have adopted. These are rules that will inform the way we expect an overall solution to be implemented, providing consistency across the different architectural components to assure alignment with business and technology objectives. So, for example, around leveraging industry standards, we assert that the technology solution should rely on existing standards wherever possible, limiting the need for standard-setting organizations to develop new ones. Where gaps exist, the solution will extend using best practices consistent with existing standards and conventions, and propose new data models to standard-setting organizations to be put through their process and adopted as standards in the future. Another important principle is to remain vendor and system agnostic. By this, we mean the solution must not be strictly dependent on any particular vendor's product, and therefore will be a framework to move towards robust industry-wide interoperability. This will be enabled by leveraging a data model, a library of common study procedures, and a catalog of services. Customers would have freedom to choose which vendor products to use, and any vendor that wants to integrate solution components would be able to participate. The common data model and the catalog of services will enable greater automation between different types of solutions and from different solution vendors. You can find out more about these and other design principles in the solution framework and conceptual design document. Next slide, please. Finally, then, to summarize, we have published the Digital Data Flow Solution Framework and Conceptual Design document, which is available to you on the Trancelerate website. In addition, there are supplementary materials, including a short explanatory video, the recorded version and presentations from our previous webinar in November of 2019. And these documents now inform the setup of our virtual hackathon event, which you're going to hear about in the rest of the webinar today. I'd now like to turn the microphone over to Stacy Murray. Stacy is the co-lead of the Digital Data Flow technical sub-team, and she will be telling you more about the goals and timeline of the upcoming hackathon and the additional technical materials that will be provided to hackathon participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for that summary of the Digital Data Flow program to date. I'd now like to take some time to walk through the hackathon, timelines, and technical materials. We have a few overall goals for the hackathon. The first goal is to verify the design at its core from the DDF team has developed a conceptual solution, verify that design, as well as the practical feedback from the providers and participants of the hackathon. In addition to verifying the design and feasibility, we'd like to jumpstart innovation. We see providing this information and forum as a good opportunity to provide the technical details of the vision of the digital data flow. In addition to jumpstarting innovation, we see this as an opportunity to get industry alignment on those core concepts of interoperability. In addition, and at the heart of the hackathon, is encouraging innovative ideas. We would like to encourage all large and small participants, providers, to point out and identify those things we may not have thought of to date in the digital data flow. Next slide, please. Today, you're participating in the February 20th webinar, which officially kicks off the activities for the upcoming hackathon. We'll be walking through the technical materials and a brief description of the Be My app that the hackathon will be executed on. March 9th through April 7th, the virtual hackathon will actually take place. April 22nd, the selection of finalists will take place. Finalist selection and criteria provided in the hackathon background package and will also be walked through later in the hackathon webinar today. Next slide, please. A little bit more in depth on the timelines in addition to today's webinar. Registration for the hackathon will open today through March 4th. A week later, February 27th, the technical package, which we're about to walk through, will be available for registered participants. On March 5th, the Be My App group will hold a webinar for the registered participants to walk through how you can interact with the Be My App during your participation in the hackathon. March 9th through April 6th is the actual execution of the hackathon, with April 7th being the deadline for the final submission. April 8th through April 20th will be the judging of the wonderful submissions from the hackathon. April 22nd will be the announcement of the finalists. Please note the asterisks. Based on the number of submissions, these timelines for judging and announcing the finalist may be adjusted. Now let's take some time to walk through the technical materials that you can find in the package the week of February 27th. In the technical package, you will find the problem statement and future state narrative. Bill provided a brief overview of some of that content in his section of this webinar. You will also find a list of key features and the 15 user stories that support those key features. In addition to the user stories, there will be a design workflow that associates each user story and where it is on the journey. Supporting each user story will also be associated mock data where applicable. Next slide, please. In a little bit more detail in part of that technical package, there are two key supporting materials, the solution framework and conceptual design, and problem statement and future state narrative. These two pieces of the technical package help lay the foundation and the story in the overall goals of the digital data flow. Taking a little bit more detail, you will then find the user stories following an agile method approach. Those user stories, where applicable, will have mock data, and we'll show some examples in a moment, as well as that design workflow. Each user story will detail out the desired functionality and the acceptance criteria of that user story. It will also highlight any prerequisites and how each user story interrelates with each other. Next slide, please. This is an example of some of the mock data you can anticipate seeing associated to each user story. At the end of each user story, it will reference exactly which mock data file relates to that particular user story. Throughout the user stories, you will see that the mock data will build upon each other and throughout the user stories evolutions of the 15 items. Next slide, please. This is the design workflow. You will see references to each of the user stories. There's 5 library-based user stories, 3 general system user stories, and 7 protocol data functionality. We have mapped them out with their identifying numbers to help provide that context to where they fit in the digital data flow process and journey. Next slide. I'd like to now hand it over to Lucas from Be My App to provide us a summary of the platform.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I'd like to thank everybody again for joining the webinar. My name is Lucas. I'm a project manager here at Be My App. So I'll be going through some of the more general things that we'll be covering during the hackathon, as well as giving us a demo of the platform where we'll all be spending most of our time during the 30-day virtual hackathon. So a quick overview of what I'll be going over. First, we'll discuss what the different mentor types we'll be having. We'll go over some of our frequently asked questions. We've also prepared a hackathon survival guide that will have all the resources necessary that you'll need during the hackathon. We'll go over how Q&A will work on the platform during the hackathon. We'll discuss participant IP security as well. And then at the end, I'll demo the platform and go over some of the functionality so that everyone can get a bit comfortable before we get started. So first of all, starting with business and technology mentors, there will be 2 types of mentors for the hackathon, each with a specific role. The first, we have our technology mentors, and second are our business process mentors. So our technology mentors are technology architecture and design understanding experts, and our business process mentors are for business process understanding. So your technology mentors will be responsible for helping you understand the user stories, anything to do with the mock data that's associated with them as well. And then our business process mentors will be able to guide you in a more general sense as far as your requirements for your projects and helping you understand that data. So your business process mentors will really be your go-to as far as a general understanding of the hackathon. Next slide, please. Moving on to our frequently asked questions. So we've outlined our most recurring questions in a document for you, so you'll be able to access it at any time. This will be available on the platform as well, which I'll show you in a moment. So you can refer to this document for any of the basics that will come up during the hackathon. And if you can't find something that in the FAQ and you do have a question, please do feel free to contact us and we'll get back to you immediately. Some of our most common questions that we get, and I'll go through them briefly. First, if you're not familiar with what a hackathon is, we like to say think of hacking and a marathon, so combine the 2 words. Second, do you have to know how to code to join the hackathon? Absolutely not. We get all different types of profiles and people with different backgrounds that join. So you can be a developer that knows how to code, but if you have more of a business understanding, especially for this hackathon, you are more than welcome to participate. What is the challenge? We've already gone over it a bit, but this is also available in the frequently asked questions document so that it's there for you. And then where do you sign up and participate? You will sign up directly on the Be My App platform, which I'll show everyone here in a moment. Next, we've prepared a hackathon survival guide. So in this survival guide, there will be everything you need to have a fun and successful hackathon experience. So any links to any necessary documentation, such as the user stories that will be released or the mock data sets, as well as dates when your projects need to be submitted or when we'll be having a webinar. So you'll find everything in there that's necessary for you, and if you can't find something in there as well, please do feel free to contact us. A bit on how Q&A will work during the hackathon. So our platform includes a section for Q&A, but do keep in mind that when you post a question in the Q&A forum, this will be visible to everyone. So it will be visible to other participants as well as the mentors and the hackathon organizers. So we will monitor that Q&A section daily once the hackathon kicks off, and we'll be able to answer all of your questions directly, and I'll show you how that works. But if you don't want to use the Q&A function, perhaps you have something that you don't want other participants to see, or you're just not comfortable in general with everybody seeing your question, please do feel free to send us an email. You can send it to myself or Zach at bemyapp.com. A quick note about participant IP security. So when you submit your solutions, they will only be viewable by the organizers, so the Be My App folks, and our judges. So other participants will not be able to see or access your projects, and they will not be shared with anyone outside of this hackathon as well. And as a reminder, your submissions are your own intellectual property and will remain yours after the hackathon. Your personal data, when you submit your project for the hackathon, will be treated in accordance with our privacy policy, and you can access that at any time at privacy.bemyapp.com. A quick note about submission content. So what you'll want to submit, first of all, and I'll show everyone how this works here in a moment, is your team information and contact information. So in case there are any questions about your projects, and we'd like to see who all is working on your project as well. A description of your solution related to the problem statement and user stories. So this includes architecture and technological methodologies used, as well as including how all of the user stories are addressed. Lastly, you'll want to include a demo of the solution in operation. So this can be a video or a link to a solution that you have built. And again, what you want to do in this demo of your solution is to really highlight how you have addressed all of those user stories and how they relate to your solution. The way that you will submit your project is directly on the hackathon platform. And again, I'll go over what that looks like here in a moment. Before we demo the platform, a few features that I'll go over briefly. So as I just said, we have our project submission capability on the platform. We also have the ability to have live webinars, and those webinars are automatically recorded and hosted for on-demand access. We have office hours, so your mentors for the hackathon, once we invite them to the platform today, will be able to define their availabilities, and you as the participants can book them for one-on-one interviews. So this is two-way video and audio, and we book the sessions for 25 minutes. We also have the Insights tab on the platform, so this is where you'll want to go to find any documentation or resources that we have available for the hackathon. So things in there are such as the frequently asked questions document that I mentioned, a copy of the official rules, any blogs or press releases that we release, etc. And lastly, as I mentioned as well, we have our questions and answers tab on the platform so that you can interact with everyone that is participating in the hackathon as well as mentors. And I will go over that in the live demo now. Awesome. So this is what the platform looks like, and this is where you'll be spending most of your time during the 30-day hackathon. You can see here I'm joined as an admin, but this won't show up for you, but everything else will show up as is. So if we scroll down on the main page here, we have our short description of what the hackathon is, a quick note about the recognition awards, the different types of profiles that are welcome to join. If one of these profiles doesn't fit directly to your job title, do not worry, you are more than welcome to join the hackathon. We have some resources here available for you as well. These are also located in the Insights tab. And then we have contact information at the bottom. We also have our privacy policy, which you can access at any time, and the terms and conditions. The first thing that I would like to go over is the Projects tab. So when you click the tab and you are registered for the hackathon, you'll see the Add Project button. So when you click this, you have a few different steps that you'll need to go through in order to submit your project. You can insert an image background if you would like that will show up right here where the teal color is, or it can be a video background if you choose to do so. We'll ask you to input your project title. You can also add a logo if perhaps you have a team logo that you would like to use, and briefly describe your project in 140 characters. And then if you have a URL that goes to, let's say, a video or some sort of demo of your project, you will input that here as well. About your project, so we'll ask you to explain what motivated your project, what was what you saw in your eyes to be the issue, and how you addressed that issue. And then you'll explain what makes your solution unique, what makes your solution really stand out, and addresses all of those key user stories. Next, we have the How It Works section. So you can add up to 2 extra steps. There's 3 here now. So this is really great to use if you want to outline step 1, we looked at all the user stories. This is the issue that we saw. Step 2, this is how we address them. And step 3, this is how our solution works. Very simple, but at the same time, you want it to be specific enough so that, again, it addresses all of those user stories and we fully understand what your solution is addressing. If you have a presentation for your project that you'd like to add, you can add the URL here, or you can upload it as a PDF file. And then if there are any applicable pictures or images that you would like to add, you can do that here as well. Lastly, we'd like you to input your team information. So anybody that is working on the hackathon with you and is registered, you will input them here in this section. And then if there are perhaps any social media links that you would like to include for your project, you can do that here as well. One reminder about this projects tab that I'd just like to remind everybody on, your submissions will not be able to be viewed by other participants. So you don't have to worry about anyone looking at these, at what you've input into this tab besides the judges and the hackathon organizers. Next, I'd like to go to the questions tab. So this is the Q&A forum that we discussed briefly. So if you have a question and you're comfortable with everyone in the hackathon viewing it, as well as the mentors, you can do so here. When you click Ask a Question, you simply type your question in. You can attach a file if you need to, either a JPEG, GIF, PNG, and PDF. You can also select a panel. So if you'd like a specific mentor to be notified about it, you can do that as well. And then click Send Your Question, and it will pop up in a thread here. And then once your question pops up in a thread here, participants, mentors, or the hackathon organizers can click that question and then reply in the thread so that everybody else can click your question and then see all of the responses that have showed up. Next, we have our Insights tab. So over here, you'll find more resources that are applicable to the hackathon. So as you can see, we have our hackathon survival guide that I briefly discussed, our frequently asked questions, and then some more resources that are more technical and applicable to the hackathon. As more resources become available, such as the user stories and the mock data sets, they will be added here as well. Lastly, we have our mentors tab. So once I invite all of the mentors to the hackathon today, you will be able to go in here and book them for one-to-one availabilities. So you can see Justin hasn't defined any availabilities, so that could be something that you see, but for the mentors that do have availabilities, you will be able to click on this button here, and then you will be able to book them for the time slots and the dates that they have chosen. When you do that, you will see when you are logged into the platform this interviews tab. And if per se I book Justin for an availability, it will pop up here in the interviews tab, and you will be able to go to that conference room and wait for it to go live. As a reminder, once that session goes live, you will be able to have two-way video and audio. When we do webinars on the conference, such as mine that will be on March 5th, you will not be able to have video and audio, or video rather, on your end. So these one-to-one interviews are really great if you have specific content and questions that you need to ask a mentor that pertains to your project. With that, I believe that is everything that I want to cover with the platform. If you have any questions about the platform or any of the functionality, if you register today, please do let us know, and we'd be more than happy to get you acquainted. And with that, I think I will kick things over to Todd Georgieff.
Great, thank you, Lucas. So I'm Todd Georgieff from Roche. I'm the Transility Program Lead, and I'm also the co-lead of the stakeholder engagement sub-team of the Digital Data Flow project. At the beginning of this webinar, Bill shared with you the vision and the challenge that DDF team is hoping to see addressed. And Stacy outlined the technical approach that's going to be taken during the hackathon, where participants will develop prototypes that address the features outlined in the user stories. We really hope you're excited by the possibilities and that many of you are planning to register and participate in the hackathon. We're hoping to have several submissions to assess at the end of the process. And I want to emphasize that our objective in this hackathon, as you saw on slide number 22, where Stacy outlined the objectives, our objective is really not to identify a single prototype or a single vendor as successful. Our objectives are really to verify the design concept and the viability of what we're envisioning, to encourage alignment around the principle of interoperability, and also to provide an opportunity for smaller companies and startup companies and non-traditional providers to participate in that vision of interoperability and workflow automation as well. To do that, we're going to be evaluating each submission really on its own merits against these criteria. And the detailed scoring sheet, which is not much more detailed than this slide, will be available in the technical package that will be shared as well. So the four main areas we'll be looking at is completeness, really the degree to which the user story execution has been addressed in that technical submission, and how well that execution indicates an understanding of the challenge that we've outlined. The second thing is the business process support. How well does the technology, has it been applied to support the business process, the business challenge, including the user interface and user experience development? The third piece is looking at technology and looking for sort of compelling or impressive technology, solid technology, and or architecture that's been used to execute the user stories and build the prototype. And then finally, we're looking for anything innovative, things that are innovative or unexpected approaches that really add a lot of value in terms of the technical approach to tackling the challenge as well. You can go on to the next slide, please. So given those objectives around verifying the concept and our general design, it should be clear that the hackathon is really just the first step in developing this community and really one aspect of this interoperable platform and the environment that we're trying to foster the development of. Once we evaluate against those success criteria, we hope to see several submissions that distinguish themselves as a great technical approach and a great technical presentation. Follow-on activities with potential providers and participants and any kind of selection activity will really have to consider a much broader set of criteria depending on what we learn in the outcome of the webinar, of the hackathon itself. You can go on to the next slide, please. So the hackathon provides the opportunity to have your technical capabilities in front of specialists at our member companies. The short-term reward for participation, therefore, is really the opportunity for awareness, recognition, and these award opportunities are really about public acknowledgement as well. So the top 3 submissions, which we're referring to as distinguished submissions because they're distinguishing themselves by their technical presentation and technical capabilities, by doing well on those criteria, they'll have the opportunity to display their work at a webinar hosted by Transcelerate and also to present their submissions at a Transcelerate leadership meeting as well. You can go on to the next slide, please. So with that, I'm going to sort of move to start wrapping us up and moving us toward the Q&A session. So important information, the hackathon registration link, which will be open starting today, starts now. The technical package will be available 1 week from today. The hackathon event itself will start on March 9th with a kickoff where some of the technical information that Lucas walked through with you a few minutes ago will actually be repeated. So you'll be walked again through the technical detail and how to use the platform. So from March 9th to April 7th is when the hackathon activity will actually take place. And then the announcement of the final selection of finalists or those distinguished submissions will be announced on April the 22nd. The introductory package is already available through the links that you'll see on these slides, the problem statement and the future state narrative are outlined, and the solution framework and conceptual design, which will provide you really all of the context that you need about the vision and the technical vision and the conceptual designs. That's great preparatory homework to do before that technical package is completed. Technical package is released next week. So with that, I think I'm turning it back to Shannon.
Thank you, Todd. And I just wanted to, before we get to the Q&A, want to do 2 quick polls to really gauge, I think today, as we heard Bill start us off with the overview of DDF. We then had Stacy walk us through what will be in the technical package. Lucas walked us through the platform. You got some overview around the actual tool that will be used to submitting and interacting during the hackathon. And Todd then finished up with giving us some understanding around distinguished recognition. And based on that, I just wanted to do a quick poll of the audience to see how helpful everyone thought today's webinar was. So as you can see, give some time. We have some options: extremely helpful, very helpful, somewhat helpful, not so helpful, or not helpful at all. It is purely voluntary. All the answers will be anonymized. So I'll give everyone a couple seconds to cast their votes. Okay, I'm going to close this poll and share out. So as you can see, we had 49% very helpful, 35% somewhat helpful, and 15% extremely helpful. So we're also hoping during the Q&A and some of the additional material that we'll be able to answer any other questions you might have. And I have another final poll before we get into the Q&A. For tech vendors, how likely is it that you will register for the 30-day hackathon? Very likely, likely, neutral, meaning you need more information, unlikely, or very unlikely. I'll give the audience a few more seconds, 10 more seconds to respond. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. As we can see, I will share this out. We have 35% very likely, 18% likely, and 40% more information, which is a great segue to open it. I'm going to turn it back to Stacy Teagan, who will take us through the Q&A portion of today's webinar.